When you're new to drawing, sometimes the hardest thing is to get started. I'll usually start by drawing a rectangle if I have dimensions provided. The dimensions in this kitchen, 120 by 80, will be the dimensions of my rectangle. So let's draw a rectangle. We'll go choose the rectangle command, and then we'll start it at 0, 0. So we'll enter twice, and we'll type in the X value, which was 120, and then the Y value, which was 80. We can see that the depths of our countertops are 25.5. We can offset the edges of our rectangle to get the countertop depths. Choose offset, and then for the distance, we'll enter in 25.5. We'll make sure that line and arc is selected, and we'll check the box offset as geometry, so our lines will come out on the green geometry layer. And then we can offset the 3 edges to the inside. And we can use offset one more time. The countertop on the right is only 70 inches long, so we can offset the top down 70 inches to get that length. So we'll choose offset again, and we can change the distance to 70. We'll verify that line and arc is selected, as well as offset as geometry. We'll click OK, select the top line, and to the bottom side. Now we have all the lines for the outline or perimeter of our countertop. But we will need to trim some lines away. When we choose Trim, and it says Select Cutting Geometries at the bottom of our screen, we can have all of our lines become cutting geometries for trimming. You can either select the All button, which will select everything, the same as making a window to select everything. When you're done selecting, you must finish as normal. And now we're prompted to pick the geometries to trim. Pick each geometry to trim away. You may find some geometries that do not trim. It is more than likely because there isn't a cutting edge going through them. So instead of using trim, we'll use delete to delete the entire geometry. Now with the perimeter completed, it is easiest to select all the line segments to be joined together. Choose Join, and you can window it to select them. And of course, Finish. When an object is joined, we should only see one breakpoint. And finally, we can add the 1-inch radius fillets to complete our exercise 13. So we can choose Fillet and type in 1 for the fillet radius, and then OK, and we'll select the 2 lines as prompted to apply the fillets to our countertop. To complete example 13. In the next example, we'll show how to draw Euro seams, or sometimes called French miters. Note that there is a step-by-step procedure in your printouts on how to draw Euro seams on an inside corner. I'll be following these steps as I go along and draw these Euro seams. We'll start with the first step, which is offset the interior edges to the inside, typically 1.75 inches. So we'll choose Offset, set the distance to 1.75, and I'll choose to offset a single line and arc, and Offset as Geometry I'll leave unchecked so it comes out on the construction layer. offset all inside edges to the inside. The next step is to use fillet to make sharp corners on the inside. So we can select fillet, set the radius to 0, and then select the ends of our construction lines to be connected together. In the next step, we'll draw a line to represent the seam. The 3 steps to draw the line are noted in this procedure. Choose to draw a line, started at the end of in the inside corner as shown, and then to the end of the offset corner. And we want the line to go up in this direction, which is parallel with this front edge. So we'll use the parallel to snap, and when we select it, it asked us to select the line that we would like to stay parallel to. Select this edge by clicking on it, and then you can pull your line up parallel in that direction, and click past the edge to set that endpoint down before you finish. We'll draw the other seam before we go to the next step of deleting the offset lines. So we'll go choose to draw another line, and we'll start it at the end of the inside corner, and then we can go to the end of the offset corner. And we'll use this edge to be parallel to as shown in the drawing. Parallel to, select this edge, drag our line across, and click to set it down before we finish. And now that we're done using our offset lines for reference, we can delete them. And the last step is to fillet in between the 2 lines that we just created. 2.5-inch radius is commonly used as it's large enough to allow a tool to fit the inside corner. It's best to zoom in so that we can see and pick the proper ends of the lines. Notice when you zoom full screen, there are 3 white X's, 1 for each joined geometry. And that completes drawing Euro seams and example 14. If we are planning on cutting these parts out of a slab or positioning the part pieces on a table, we will need 3 separate completed parts with joined perimeters. Follow the steps in your printouts, and I will explain them as we go along. Step number 1 says to draw and or fix the countertop layout, which we've already done. Step number 2 says join the entire perimeter of the countertop. We already did this as well, but we can always double check by going to an edit command, maybe delete, and hovering each object to see that they're joined together. We've already completed step number 3 to draw all the seams, and we ensured that they went past the one edge and they were connected at the endpoint at the other. We also verified that all the lines and arcs making up the seams were joined. So step number 4 is completed as well. Step number 5 says choose cut from the edit tab. There may be 2 cuts. The cut under Fabricate is the one that we're looking for, as there may be another cut over at the left side as well. So when we choose Cut from the Fabricate menu, it will say select cutting geometries, very similar to the Trim command. We want the seam lines to cut the countertop, therefore the 2 seam lines are our cutting geometries, so we'll select them and then finish. And now we're prompted to select the geometries to cut. We'll select the joined perimeter and then finish. You may notice an extra breakpoint on one of your parts. That's a sign that they're separated. Step number 8 is to delete the original seam lines. We left the ends nice and long so they'll be easy to select. And then we can move our parts away from each other, and we'll see that we have 3 separate joined pieces to make up our countertop. Now this drawing is ready for programming. You can save it into your folder as kitchen number 1. If you make or prefer straight seams, we'll go through an example using the same countertop with 2-inch radiuses on the inside corners. Let's start by drawing kitchen 1 in example 13. I'm going to draw this quickly. If you need to, go back to the beginning of the video through the step-by-step. And now we can add fillets to the inside corners with the 2-inch radius. We'll draw a straight seam using a line. Choose a line, and then we'll start at the end of the inside corner. And we want the line to be parallel to this front edge. So we'll select it and then bring the line all the way back past the back edge and right-click to finish. We'll choose to draw another line, and we'll start it at the end of the inside corner again. And then we'll choose to have the line run parallel with this inside front edge, which we'll pick and then pull the line straight across past the edge and right-click to finish. Next, we're going to offset this seam line away from that inside corner. Choose offset, and then for the distance, I'm going to use 1 inch. You can use another value if you prefer. And then I'll offset this line away from the inside corner and this line away from the inside corner. And then we can delete the original seam lines that we drew. And now to separate into pieces. With our countertop and seams drawn, step number 1 is done in our procedure. Step number 2 is to join the perimeter. So choose join, and then we'll select all the lines and arcs making up the perimeter. We only want to join the perimeter. If you select the seams to be joined as well, deselect them by picking them before you finish. And now, with our 3 completely joined geometries, we can separate our countertop into separate parts. Find Cut from the Edit tab, and then follow the prompts. Select the 2 seam lines as the cutting geometries, and then Finish. Before you select the countertop perimeter as a geometry to be cut, and Finish to complete the cut command. And finally, the last step in your procedure is to delete the original seam lines and move the parts away from each other. Now this drawing is ready for programming. If you are having trouble separating your parts, here are a few things to look for. Gaps are usually the cause. I'm going to make a small flaw in this drawing. I want to rotate this inside edge just a hair, so I'll have to explode it first. Then I can choose Rotate, and I'm just going to select these front 3 geometries. and I'll rotate them just a fraction of a degree. I'll set it at 0.1 of a degree. And then I'll join everything back together. Now this drawing looks ready to add seams. So we'll draw our seams. We'll start with drawing a line, using the endpoint snap, snapping to the inside corner, and then we'll use parallel to this front edge. And then we can offset that line. I'll use 1 inch. And like before, we'll delete the original. Now, even though this drawing looks as it did before, there are 2 quite common flaws. Choose Cut and follow the prompts. Select the cutting geometry, finish, and then select the perimeter to be cut. We probably won't notice that there's an error until we go to move our part. I'll undo twice to get back to where we were, with 1 X on each geometry. The first problem is with the corner. The 1 X shows that the perimeter is joined, but doesn't necessarily mean that it is connected or closed. Fill it with a radius of 0 will ensure that it is closed or connected. With one problem fixed, let's go through the steps again to cut the countertop. And it looks correct when we're finished, but when we go to move the parts away from each other, we'll discover that it didn't work correctly. So I'll undo a couple times so we can troubleshoot. Another common problem is with the cut line itself, that it must extend to or past the edges. If we zoom in, we can see that there is a gap, so our cut line is not able to cut the perimeter. An easy fix for this is if we use extend by distance so that we can visibly see the cut line goes past the perimeter. Those are the 2 most common problems when trying to separate a countertop into pieces. With those issues corrected, it will separate properly. Thank you for choosing Park Industries.